Good evening. I'm the Fit Lawyer ATL, and we are live. Welcome. Oh my goodness. I am so excited for tonight, and I hope that you all are just as excited as I am. I have known of, seen in court, watched this person work magic way before this YSL trial. And it has been amazing to see Keith Adams represent Young Thug as one half of his legal team in this YSL trial. Now we'll be bringing Keith Adams up shortly, very shortly. As soon as he joins us, we'll be bringing him up. So I'm not going to tease you all for too long. Let me shout out some people in the chat. I see Alchemy's here in the chat. One of my first moderators. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate all of your support. Shout out to Here Comes Drama, another amazing moderator that has shown me so much support. You all, my moderators have just been people that have been supporting from day one, from the very first live, telling people to like, share, subscribe. So it's just been a blessing to have such supportive people in the chat. Let me just remember to do something. Some people joining. I need to share this link. Give me 1 second. Got to do that. Okay. All right. Okay, got that done. So let me go back to the chat. So hey, welcome everyone. Aisha Judd, thank you for joining. Nene B, Kenzel the Long Way here. Thank you. Welcome everyone for joining us. Thank you so much. Ruth Phillips, thank you. Shout out for joining and becoming a new member. Welcome to the channel. I appreciate that so much. There's a link pinned to the top of the chat if you'd like to join a membership as well. Hello, everyone. Come in. Been anxious all day. Mama D, thank you so much. I just noticed that when I did it on Twitter, I said 9 a.m. tonight, but you all figured it out. So you are here. Yes, Harriet AB had an amazing interview earlier today at noon with Doug, and Keith Adams is on tonight. So AB is killing it. So you all, if you have not subscribed to AB's channel, can one of the moderators drop her channel in the chat? Go do so. She has some amazing interviews coming up as well with some other pertinent people from the YSL trial. So check it out. It's just been all a buzz ever since this verdict came in yesterday. Wasn't this amazing? It's just been here, right? We were back in right after the verdict. And actually the verdict came in the middle of the status hearing, right? And when it came down, she paused the status hearing, ran through the verdict, ran through the sentencing of probation, and went right back to the status hearing. And I heard that we had a plea today from another defendant, what's his first name? I don't want to mess it up. Mr. Winfrey entered a plea today. He goes by Pee Wee Roscoe is what he's known by. So he entered a plea today, and guess what? Again, he was commuted to time served and probation. Like, the state keeps taking L's daily on this case. It's just ridiculous that we were on trial with 170 days of trial, and they still couldn't convince the jurors that these guys were committing criminal gang activity, were participating in a RICO. They couldn't prove them guilty of murder, either Shannon or Yak. Just embarrassing, right? It's been a waste of money. It's been a waste of time, waste of taxpayers' money, right? They held the jurors hostage. I don't know if you all checked out I'm Not a Lawyer But channel last night. She had 3 of the jurors on. It was amazing to listen to them talk about their deliberations. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out. The jurors said things like, for one, the state wearing red at the end. We all talked about it. They were kind of used to the color coding. I think the ones that sat in the back couldn't even really see it. So it didn't have the impact I think the state thought. And also, I think juror 225, I believe her number, stated that, and this was one of the jurors that deliberated, that the red kind of came off like, so they can't wear red, but y'all can? Like, what are y'all trying to prove? So it was just really fascinating to hear how yes, Kay, how all the jurors interpreted the state's strategies and tactics, not the way they intended, right? Kaya says Keith Adams is daddy for real. Right? He speaks and everybody listens. I love seeing him in his element. So freaking good. Isn't he amazing? And that's what a lot of the jurors were saying. They were saying that on the live, that they love just his cool personality, his just smoothness in the courtroom. He was straight to the point. They kind of felt Steele might have been a little long-winded sometimes, so they loved his directness. Same thing they loved about Doug. So it was great to hear them chat about it. So definitely check it out. Shout out to Mixed Chicks. One of my moderators in the chat gifted 5 Fit Lawyer memberships. If you received one of her memberships, please say thank you in the chat. Thank you, Mixed Chicks. Shout her out. If you got a Mixed Chip membership, say thank you in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we'll keep scrolling down. Yes, Keith is coming up, Brooklyn. I'm not teasing you all. He is in the background. We are bringing him up shortly. As I was saying before, Keith Adams is a criminal defense and personal injury attorney in Atlanta, Georgia. He has been practicing now for over 30 years. I've had the pleasure to see him in court in DeKalb County, Fulton County, all of Metro Atlanta. He is amazing. There is no relation. For those who know me, we do have the same last name. And whenever we're in court together before Judge Adams in DeKalb, he always introduces it as Keith Adams, no relation, Miss Adams, no relation, and no, we are not related to each other. So without further ado, everyone is here. We have 790 of y'all in the chat, but only 254 likes. So let's get the like button up as I bring Mr. Keith Adams to the stage. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hey, Tiffany. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm loving that sweater you got on there, Sorrel.
You know how we do. I had to represent tonight. I had to represent.
All right.
Okay. Cool. So yes, thank you so much. And Keith Adams went to Tulane Law School. So graduated from there. And we have been chatting about getting this interview together ever since the trial ended. A lot of you all may think once this trial ended that he actually maybe caught a flight to a private island and chilled out for a couple of weeks, but no, he was literally in court the next day. I literally saw him in court the following Monday. Can you believe it? So he has been in court working hard. So we were able to finally track him down. They are so happy you are here. You are the smooth operator throughout this trial. So without further ado, you all, Keith Adams. Thank you. Introduce yourself to the people who don't know you on this national trial. How could they not?
Well, and thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I'd probably be remiss if I let you just get away with saying I went to Tulane Law School without also saying that I went to Howard University undergrad.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for dropping that. Okay.
HU. You in the house. That's right.
Yes. Okay. I love it.
Yeah, but it's great to be here, Tiffany. And you're right. When the trial was over, this 2.5 year long trial was over. I really would have liked to have gotten away to an island somewhere and relaxed. But unfortunately, there were cases that have been sitting around for 2.5 years that needed attention. So the judges, who I found out were watching all of the live streams just as much as anybody else, started calling me the next day. Mr. Adams, looks like you're not on trial anymore. Coming in, we got some cases over here for you to try. So it continues, but that's okay. That's okay. That's what we do.
That's what we do. And that's what people don't understand. They think when you're self-employed as an attorney that you kind of control your schedule. But when you enter an appearance in an attorney's case, you're at the judge's beck and call.
That is true. That is true. It's unless you're smart enough to file a leave of absence to protect you for certain times during when you want to be out of pocket.
Yes.
Listen, and you know what? We've got clients. We've got clients who come into our offices and their families pay us a lot of money to do our best for them, to be there for them, and so we have to honor that. Yes. I take that really seriously. As much as I took Jeffrey's case, Young Thug, for everybody here.
Mhm.
I took his case seriously. Everyone else in my docket and in my file cabinet and on my desk deserves the same attention. So, we got work to do, and we're happy to do it. We'll find time to rest.
Yes, I love how you continue to fight. Thank you so much. So let me get right to it. The verdict came down yesterday.
Yes.
What was your reaction? What did you think?
Not surprised. Not surprised. Listen, we have spent the better part of a year in that courtroom trying this case. And there are some fantastic attorneys. Max Shard is a great attorney. Doug Weinstein, so proud of him. He's a great attorney. Brian, Angela D. Williams, Katie, Lamar, Bruce, everybody. We have some good lawyers in there. And we worked on this case and we helped each other. And when a piece of evidence came in, whether it had to do with us or another client, we all jumped in, we did our thing. And so we spent the better part of a year knocking down this ridiculous case that the state had put up. And it paid off. It paid its dividends. I was not surprised. I fully expected both Mr. Kendrick and Mrs. Stillwell to be acquitted, and it was a great outcome.
Yes, it was. It was amazing. Like you say, the state should have never brought this prosecution. And I think the resolution of the cases, how they're playing out, the sentencing we're seeing from the judge is evidence that she agrees as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. The only thing we ever wanted when we walked into that courtroom, all of us, was to have a fair trial. And for a number of months with the first judge, the rulings just weren't appropriate. The temperament wasn't appropriate. The state was getting away with everything they wanted to get away with. They would lie, they'd hide evidence, they'd withhold stuff that they weren't supposed to withhold. They'd filibuster and keep talking and talking and talking. And all we wanted was an opportunity to really defend our case and have a judge who held everybody to task. And we got that. And you saw how things shifted when that happened. All of a sudden, the state wasn't able to get away with what they were getting away with before.
Right.
To withhold evidence and not be held accountable. And, our time was valued a bit more. We'd come in at 9, and instead of getting there at 9 and having to wait till 11, we'd actually start at 9 and things accomplished. So it went, everything went better.
Yeah. You also didn't see the state kind of back and forth with the judge, because with Glanville, there were times when ADA Love would be arguing and shouting and like she was fighting at home with.
Listen, let me tell you something. When most attorneys know that you win some, you lose some, right? And you make your argument to the judge, and the judge rules, and the judge says, "I've ruled, objection overruled," right? And okay, that's fine. We've lost that one. We sit down. But what the state would continuously do is just keep talking, and she'd talk and unfortunately, that would sometimes end up in swaying the judge to overturn his ruling. And we're sitting there like, oh my God, what is going on here?
How did you bag up on that? That's crazy.
But finally, we had a judge come in there and say, listen, I've ruled, and held their feet to the fire and called them on it when they were being dishonest.
Yes.
And that made all the difference in the world.
It did. Do you got to get this question in? What was Young Thug's reaction to the verdict? Be honest. What was
all right. So let me tell you something. Jeffrey called me about 5 minutes after that verdict came down. I'm sitting there in my office. I'm watching it on the live stream. I'm doing some work. I'm excited as hell for Max and Doug and their clients. And I look over, my FaceTime is ringing, and it's Jeffrey, and he's like, oh man. He's like, his reaction was twofold. He was happy for Kendrick and for Stillwell, very happy. He was happy that they're coming home. There was a part of him, I think, that was thinking, you know what, we probably should have gone all the way, because we would have been walking out of there with a not guilty verdict as well. And I agree, we would have, and we wanted to. Came a point where Jeffrey made a decision that he wanted to go ahead and enter that plea and go home on that day, and he did. But so his reaction, he was happy for them. There was a little bit of regret on his part, but overall, he's still doing great. He's happy to be home. I was talking to him. He's out in California. He's out in LA. So he's doing just fine, and he's going to be doing just fine.
Good. Now, a lot of people have the question of, can he now undo his plea? Can he take it back, and can the judge amend anything now that the other two were found not guilty?
Well, that wouldn't be the basis. The fact that other folks continued on and they were ultimately found not guilty would not be a basis to undo anything that's happened thus far. So the short answer is probably not. You always have the ability to go back somewhere down the road and file a motion to modify a sentence, right? Or to reconsider a sentence. And that can be done a little bit down the road. In terms of withdrawing the plea, you can file a motion to withdraw a plea, but really a court's going to say, well, did you enter that plea freely, voluntarily, and knowingly? And if you did, then there's no basis really to withdraw it. And that plea played out on national and international TV. And so the judge and everyone else had the ability to see us describe our discussions with our client. And Jeffrey addressed the court himself and indicated that that's what he wanted to do. So to go back in front of the judge now and say, I want to withdraw the plea, probably is not a winning strategy.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that and explaining that to the people. And so now that, okay, so let's talk about Thug's charges that he had pending. So, because a lot of people are confused because there was a lot of charges. And so when I listened to the jurors talk, some of the jurors on I'm Not a Lawyer But channel last night, they had that question about Yak Gotti's, about the watch. Because they said if Doug had said that the watch was Yak Gotti's, then that would have placed him in the home. And so it sounded like maybe they would have considered giving him that charge. And so then when I hear that, I remember, well, Thug had charges that, and it was his home, and there were drugs and weapons found in the home. Was that a concern that he could possibly be found guilty of those charges?
Sure, it would have been a concern. The law allows that if you are in custody and control of a residence or a car, for example, that you're presumed to be in custody and control of the contents of that residence. Now, that can be rebutted, right? If there are other people who are in there, I mean, I can have a house and you can bring something into my house that doesn't make it mine. And so in this case, both Jeffrey and Diamante were both charged with items found in the house. They call it constructive possession because theoretically they could both have exercised custody and control over those items, including watches, jewelry, and so forth. So was it a concern? It wasn't a big concern for us. I mean, if we had gotten to the point in the trial where we were presenting evidence, you would have heard evidence. You would have heard witnesses testify to the ownership of different items in that house. You would have heard evidence about the fact that that's one of many houses that Jeffrey resides in. And he's really not in that house very often. He had just come back from an international concert. He had just gotten back in the country a day or two before that. So, to say that everything in that house he should have known was there or was his was not the winning argument. We weren't that concerned about that. We would have won that one.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing. So when you say evidence presented, so what we saw once the case continued, when it became time for the defense to enter evidence, they chose not to, right? So what you're saying is if Young Thug had stayed in the case, you all definitely were going to be presenting a defense.
Oh, yeah. There would have been probably a month's worth of a defense presented from us.
Okay.
I mean, we had a case to put on. We had a case to put on to rebut a lot of the things that the state had contended and their narrative that they had put forth.
Right. Well, I will say that you all did a very good job because I know it's team effort, right? Whenever one of you all is standing up and presenting, you all both have worked on this. So the jurors, the opening and how Brian Steele made Young Thug relatable and humanized him and showed how that 9 years ago, this was his age, and this is how he's grown and how he's come to, and how he's brought people along with him. That stuck with them. So even in deliberations, they held on to that. And so you all did a great job. You did a great job in that point. And just talk about how that team even came together of you all in this case.
The reason that caught on with the members of the jury, as I understand it, is that it was true. And it's relatable. And unlike the prosecution who had blinders on and just, they seem, they forgot where they come from. We all know what Cleveland Avenue is like. And Cleveland Avenue was rough before Jeffrey Williams was born and grew up on Cleveland Avenue. All right. Yeah. So, yes, it is a true story that this young man came from nothing. Dirt poor, going to school, not to go learn some lessons, but because they had food at school. Right. Sleeping on friend's floor. And he made it out. You know, he made it out, and by hard work, by talent, you know, and he wanted to bring some of his people along with him. And a lot of us can relate to that. Maybe the DAs pretended that they couldn't relate to it, but we could relate to that. You know, Brian's been representing Jeffrey for a long time, you know, 10 plus, 15 plus years. I've been representing him for a good number of years. And sitting next to that I want to say kid because he's a good bit younger than me. He ain't no kid. He's in his 30s. But, you know, sitting next to that young man, you come to realize that, you know, Jeffrey is not necessarily the public persona that we see. He's a funny guy. He's a smart guy. I mean, we sit there and we chuckle like two 16-year-old high school boys, you know, in the middle of this darn trial. And so you get to know him. And I think Brian's description of him and his life, and even when I had the opportunity to cross-examine some witnesses and kind of put some questions out there, I think we were putting the real Jeffrey Williams in front of the jury instead of this caricature that the state wanted to try and ignore. You know, he really cared for some of these folks. Yeah, he knew folks from the street because he came from the streets. You know, but we had a narrative and a story, I think, that came through as strongly as the one that the state had.
Yes, and you're so right. Your cross-examinations, every time you presented, it resonated with the jury that you were one of the favorites. They loved that you were straight to the point. They kind of felt sometimes Brian Steele might have been a little long-winded. So, but they
He's
did.
Thorough.
Yeah,
thorough. That's the word.
That's what I was about to say, because they appreciated how he kept bringing up the McDonald's video. So they held on to that and started questioning, well, why don't we have one? Well, where is it? So everything you all did was so effective. Can you talk about, just because I know how long it takes to prep a 5-day murder trial? That's 200 hours. Talk about just the preparation for the trial, because you're in court every day. So you prep prior to that.
Yeah. Listen, Jeffrey was arrested on May 9th of 2022. And on that day and the day after that, Brian and I got to work. When I say that first of all, no one works harder than Brian. I work pretty hard, and I'm up at 5 in the morning and in my office at 6 in the morning. I'm there late into the evening, but Brian beats me all the time. And we worked on this weekends, night times. We put aside a lot of other things. You know, the wife is probably itching for a real vacation as opposed to a weekend getaway, you know, simply because it was a lot of work. We had the benefit of having other attorneys. You know, we'd have meetings with, you know, Max and Doug and Jay and Bruce Harvey and Lamar and Nicole and the rest of them, because there was so much stuff to digest. Tiffany, I don't know if you know what 8 terabytes of discovery looks like.
I can't even imagine. My computer is 1 terabyte. Like 8 of those.
Listen, let me tell you something. Thousands of jail calls, you know, that we go through, and hundreds and hundreds of pages of police reports. The only way we could really get through it was Brian and I divided things up. He said, okay, Keith, you're going to take those witnesses. I'll take these witnesses. I'll look at these phone records. You look at these, you listen to these jail calls. We had interns. We had other folks assisting us. And I have got to say that the defense attorneys in Atlanta are fantastic, because there were so many people who jumped in and helped us and wanted to help us. And you saw it when Brian got held in contempt.
Yeah.
You know, folks showed up down there to help and to support. So
Yeah.
it was just a lot of work. And you know, there's no substitute for putting in the work that you need to put in. And you know, sometimes it wears you out, but it pays off.
It does. It's so worth it in the end. So worth it.
Indeed.
So you mentioned the contempt, the arrest. So you've known Judge Glanville for a long time. I've had cases before him. I'm sure you've had previous cases.
Yeah, I have.
Was this the Glanville you've known from the past?
So, you know, I'll be honest. No, I've known Judge Glanville for a long time. I think he's a fine jurist. I've never had a problem practicing in front of him. Things have always been smooth. He's been accommodating and so forth. I've tried cases in front of him. Something was different this go around. You know, I questioned a lot of his rulings. He seemed to be a bit short-tempered with the defense. He seemed to let the prosecution get away with a whole lot more than any judge would have. And so I found that to be a little bit bothersome. And you know what? Look, you can yell at me. You know, you can, you know, have an attitude or whatever with me, but that affects my client as well.
Right.
And so when the rulings of the court and the way the trial is being conducted affects my client and my client's rights, that's when things get a little bit problematic. And it kind of reached a boiling point when we found out about this ex parte meeting that the court had with Woody and the prosecution. You know, we show up in court for 9 o'clock. Now, let me set the stage a little bit.
Yes.
Friday, the week before, Woody is brought in to testify. Now, the state didn't know what the hell he was going to say because they didn't bother to really talk to him. We prepped for him, right? So Woody comes in and he says, "I ain't testifying." And they say, "Okay, well, we're gonna give you immunity, so you no longer have a Fifth Amendment right. You have to testify, and if you don't, you're going to jail." He says, "I ain't testifying." So they hold him in contempt and they send him to jail. And the last thing he says before he leaves out of there on Friday is "I don't care. I'm not testifying. I'm gonna stay in jail." So Monday we report at 9 o'clock. As far as we know, Woody ain't testifying because he just said that on Friday.
Right.
9 o'clock, and we notice it's just the defense in there. Ain't no judge on the bench. The prosecution's not there. We're sitting in that darn courtroom for 2 hours, not knowing what the hell is going on. And at 11 o'clock, everyone comes in. The DAs come in, they take a seat. The judge comes in and takes a seat. Woody is brought out from the holding cell, and all of a sudden, he's going to testify. And we're like, what the hell just happened?
Right.
That we didn't know about in those 2 hours. And so we come to find out as it moves forward a little bit about this secret meeting that had been had. And when I say that was beyond belief, who does that? You know, you just don't do that. And so there was no getting beyond that. And so Brian and I talked about it, and we made our motion, held them in contempt, locked them up. Glanville was alerted. The judge said, "Well, you still, Mr. Williams, you still got an attorney. Mr. Adams is here. You can go forward." I said, "I'm not going forward without Mr. Steele out here."
I love it.
And I stepped out the courtroom and I said, "I'm not coming back in." And the judge said the deputies to come bring me back in. I said, "I'm not going forward without Mr. Steele." And I think at that point, the judge realizes, well, I can't hold them both in contempt because then he really doesn't have an attorney, and then they really won't go forward. Right. Things change. Brian's brought back out, but things kind of go from there, and that's what led to the court being recused.
I didn't realize you had stepped outside of the courtroom to double down on "I'm not going forward." I love that.
We were not going to go forward, and I certainly was not going to go forward with my co-counsel, with Brian sitting in a holding cell locked up. It just wasn't happening. Right. You know, so at some point you got to take your stand. Look, I ain't afraid of jail. Well, I'm a little bit, but I get what you said.
As an attorney, you're not gonna spend a long time. We're gonna get you out. You know,
right, we're gonna be fine. Right, I'll be fine. The deputies will take care of me until Glanville comes and gets me out. So you know, it was just important to us that our client's rights were protected, and at that point, his rights were being trampled over, and we weren't going to let that happen.
Yes,
and all of the other attorneys had our back.
Yes, everyone stuck together. And when you mentioned that, so every defendant stood in a different position, right? Everybody had different charges. Yes. So when there were motions for mistrial, I know Brian Steele would always say, "I don't want a mistrial. I don't want a mistrial." Where were you all at on that? So if it was going to be granted for some, were you going to double down and make the trial continue for Young Thug? How would that work?
There were times where, so here's the thing: when you try a case, as you know, you try a case to win it. But in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, well, if we don't win it, we've got to have a basis to appeal. And you don't let something that shouldn't happen go by without objecting to it. You have an obligation to object. And so sometimes we'd move for mistrial, which was an appropriate move because we had to. I mean, nobody wanted to start this case over after being in there for 16, 18 months. Nobody wanted to do that. But you also don't want to waive an issue for your client by not objecting or not moving for mistrial. There were opportunities where there were motions for mistrials made, and it really only applied to maybe one defendant or two. And so the court could have granted a mistrial as to one person and not as to others. But there was something in effect called the Harvey rule the Bruce Harvey rule, which informally meant that if one of us objected to something, we were all adopting that objection. And because it's a RICO case, right? And remember, everything comes right back to everybody else, and especially us, especially Young Thug. The case, the DAs built their case around everything included in this indictment comes back to Young Thug. He's responsible for everything.
Right, the wolf of the pack.
Right. There you go. Rudyard Kipling, right? So you know, we did have to try and stick together with our motions. There was always going to come a point where sometimes defenses diverged, and so there might have been a time where you saw a witness testify, and maybe only one or two attorneys cross-examine that person, and the other attorneys wouldn't say anything because it really didn't have anything to do with us. Yeah. And you don't want to put yourself into something that ain't got nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
You don't have.
Exactly. Now, the ex parte hearing, if Judge Glanville had not been in a biased state, was once you all made that motion for mistrial at that point, was that supposed to end things? Like, that was so egregious. Was that one of those motion for mistrial with prejudice? Was that what was supposed to happen at that point?
It should have. It's discretionary with the court and reviewable later on appeal. But here's what should have happened. When you make a motion for mistrial and it's based upon the misconduct of that judge can't make a decision about whether he has done something worthy of a mistrial. What he has to do immediately is recuse himself and let another judge come in and determine whether or not he has done something that is desirous or worthy of a mistrial. And that's what the judge didn't do. So when Brian and I moved for a mistrial, the judge said, no, I'm not going to grant the mistrial. And he started to defend himself. He started to say there was nothing that was said in this meeting that was inappropriate. There was nothing wrong with this ex parte. And that was wrong. Legally, that was wrong. That is ultimately the basis that Judge Krause used to grant the recusal. To say he should be recused. So legally, that's what happened.
Now, can Thug still raise those bases on appeal even though he took the plea?
No. Well, there is no appeal once you've pled. But that's not true. There are limited things that you can appeal, but no, those issues all go away. And that actually, interestingly enough, was part of the reason why, towards the end, when Judge Whitaker was going to grant a mistrial and asked us whether we want, what type of mistrial do you want? She said, you want one with prejudice or without? She wasn't going to grant one with prejudice, but none of us wanted to try the case again, but we also didn't want to lose that issue. Right. And so that's why you heard Brian keep saying, I don't want a mistrial. I've got to make the motion, but I really don't want a mistrial. Right. We have to preserve that issue. The only way that gets preserved, the only way it becomes an issue is if we continue with the trial. Jeffrey gets convicted, and then we argue that issue on appeal. Okay. Now, make no mistake. If this case had gone forward and anyone had gotten convicted, I know Shannon got convicted of that little gun charge, but if let's say Jeffrey had gone forward and he had gotten convicted, this case was going to be reversed. There's no doubt in my mind. There were about 40 or 50 something different reasons why this case was going to be reversed.
Yeah. And once cases are reversed, what happens is he just free on bond while that process is occurring? Like, what happens? He gets guilty, he's sentenced, he's in prison. Does he get out while the appeal is pending? Well,
that's the other difficult thing. So in our case, given the charges that he had, let's say that we had gone forward and Jeffrey had been convicted of the RICO count and the gang counts and everything else. We could appeal. All right. I don't think that some of those charges are a charge where you can get an appeal bond. So the bottom line is we appeal, but he's sitting in prison for 3, 4, 5 years while that appeal works its way through. And even once it gets overturned 4 years later, he's already been in prison for 4 years plus the 2 years before during trial. And what happens then is the case comes right back to where we left off. So the state can try it again unless one of the bases for appeal grants us a reversal and bars them from retrying it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
a lot of ifs, a lot
Yeah.
of technicalities there, but the bottom line is he's sitting in jail while that appeal works its way through.
And that's all the things that he has to consider when I decide if I take that plea or not. I just want
Exactly.
to pause for 1 second. Shout out to the chat. We have 3,200 people in this chat. 3,256 people are in the chat watching you live. They are loving you in this chat. Y'all, I am not missing these super chats. I'm going to come out. I did not know it was Founders Day. The Little Gaming Channel sends a $19.06 super chat saying Happy Founders Day to the first and the finest fraternity of all time, Alpha Phi Alpha Incorporated, December 4th, 1906. Shout out, brother. Shout out.
Let me join in that and wish a happy Founders Day to all my friends and colleagues who are alphas. Happy Founders Day to y'all.
Yes, yes. Now I saw another couple of questions. What you got in your cup? They want to know that. You don't want to say, I don't recall.
For sure.
I got you. Hey, enough said. Shout out to everyone who's gifted channel memberships. I'm going to come back to those. I don't have Mr. Adams all night because I'm sure he's got court tomorrow just like I do. So we are going to keep this thing rolling. Another pressing question. Sure. Where is the watch? Who got this watch? Did anyone steal the watch?
So let me answer it this way. The last time that watch was seen, as you see on the video, it was in the possession, or it was in the hands of investigator Viverito, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, according to her testimony, that watch is put back in a box and left on a shelf, although everything else is taken. Now, help me make that make sense. Right. But that was her testimony. Mm-hmm. What we do know is that they filed a forfeiture action, right? And when they filed the forfeiture action, they had to list and sign everything that they were seeking to forfeit, that they said they had seized and that was in their possession, and that they had in their possession, they were seeking to forfeit. And guess what was on that list? That watch that was allegedly left in the closet. Again, what kind of sense does that make? Right. You take everything else, every other piece of jewelry, every other watch, but the watch that goes missing, that is unaccounted for, that was last seen in the hands of that investigator, you just left there on the shelf. Yeah,
but I don't. In your sworn affidavit. So what you're talking about, explain the forfeiture, because I don't think people realize that it's a separate action. It's still pending. It is. And how slick it was for ADA Love to try to slide that into the plea.
What the state wanted. Mm-hmm. Yes. So first of all, when Jeffrey was arrested, they raided his house. And they took a number of items. They found some drugs. They found some weapons, and they took all of his jewelry. I mean, millions of dollars of jewelry. They took watches, chains. You know, he had a watch that had been given to him by Drake. You know, a couple $100,000. You know, some other items given to him by Birdman and other entertainers and so forth. They took all of that. And they're trying to seize it. They try to keep it because they tried to make the argument in the forfeiture action that those items were the proceeds of illegal activity. And so the state can do that. So you've got the separate criminal case going on over here, but they have to file. They can't just take it. They have to file an action of forfeiture and get a judge ultimately to say that these items are the proceeds of illegal activity and the state can keep them. And so they file that forfeiture, but when they file the forfeiture, they have to identify everything that it is that they're trying to keep. And one of the things that they identify, and it's a sworn affidavit that they've got to sign saying that we've got these items and we're seeking to forfeit them. And what's on that list? It's a long list. It's about 4, 5, 6 pages. That watch. Right. And so what happens now, that action is still alive. It was stayed during the pendency of the criminal case, but it is a live action in court. And so that'll resume sometime soon. And they will have the burden of proving that those items should be forfeited. I think we'll win that. I think we'll win that relatively easily. We can prove where those items came from. and they're going to have to account for the watch that they say that they have that doesn't seem to be anywhere.
Yeah. And that watch was worth how much money?
$600,000.
Whew. Now the NOLO plea. So he entered a non-negotiated plea, but pled NOLO to the RICO. Was there any benefit legally for the NOLO on the RICO?
Yes. So he pled NOLO to the RICO, and he also pled NOLO to the gang charge. The gang charge that says that he's the leader of the gang. And as you know, although a NOLO contendere plea still results in a conviction, it is not an admission of guilt. It is essentially saying, I'm just not challenging that count. Okay. There's a benefit to any defendant who enters a NOLO plea in civil proceedings, right? And so you can imagine that, you know, you ever heard the term money grab?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm sure there are folks sitting out there waiting to sue Jeffrey Williams, saying, well, you know, you were found guilty of being part of a gang or engaging in a racketeering conspiracy, and so we've been hurt by the gang, and so we're going to sue you. We're not suing anybody else, but we're going to sue you because we know you got money. That NOLO plea is going to be important in any civil lawsuits, even though I don't see many civil lawsuits anyway, because you recall that all of the things that they were accusing him of, we're talking back in 2015, 2013, 2016, you know, so they're time barred. A lot of them are time barred anyway. You know, but so there was a benefit to the NOLO plea.
One last question on Glanville. If he's still the judge, when we get the won't he leave free quay, do we get that same mistrial situation? Does he offer a mistrial? Do we get to plea negotiations if Glanville is still on the bench?
Well, Glanville is still on the bench. Judge Glanville, he is still the chief judge, but the case is no longer his. When he was recused from the case, he's recused off of the entire case, and so the case is actually Judge Whitaker's now. Right. As you know, there are still 11 defendants. There were a total of 28 to begin with in the indictment. There's still 11 defendants whose cases, maybe 10. I thought I heard that Jimmy Winfrey took a plea today.
Yes, he did. So it's 11 left.
10 left, I think.
Okay.
So the case is Judge Whitaker's. And so however it's resolved, whether they go to trial or whether they resolve their cases or they get dismissed, it's going to happen in front of Judge Whitaker. Okay.
And so if Glanville, like, take us back though to that moment where, because oh no, I forgot. Oh no, what I'm saying is, say we had Glanville on the bench when that moment occurred. Do you think he responds the same way Whitaker did? Do you think he gives you all the option to choose this mistrial? Because that is what got us to the plea negotiations. Do we have that moment?
I you know, my opinion is probably not. And I'm just basing that on the way that the predecessor judge, Judge Glanville, had ruled previously. I think our motions for mistrial were given short thrift. But I think by the time Judge Whitaker, by the time we made that motion, which if I'm correct was motion for mistrial number 29, by the time we made that, I think she had an opportunity to observe what was going on in the case, to see the state's miscues. The state had messed up several times. They had witnesses say things they shouldn't have said. And the judge had chided them on several occasions. The judge had told them they had to take a remedial prosecutor's class. I think it just got to the point where she said, you know, no, this is the cumulative effect of all of this. There's going to be a mistrial. Yeah. And you're right. That is what I think ultimately, when she looked at the state and said, if you want to salvage your case, you all better start talking.
Yes. And she kind of came into the case kind of talking that way, right? When she, as soon as she took the bench, when she got the case, she kind of was like, do you all want, I think you all should have some conversation. She kind of always pushed that. Now, talk about the verdict when she read this. Have you ever seen a verdict presented to the court in that fashion?
Let me tell you something. Yacht Gotti didn't even have enough time to stand up before she started reading the verdict. She said, Yacht Gotti was like this when she said, you've been found not guilty on all counts. He wasn't even all the way up. You know, usually you're used to seeing, you know, the judge say, okay, will the defendant please stand? They stand, and they said, in the matter of such and such and such, we, the jury, find the defendant. Oh man, I think she was through. She was ready.
She took everyone's moment away. Like, she didn't give the foreman the opportunity to
Right.
the verdict. She didn't even give Yak time to stay. It was just like, look, when she flipped that paper open, she was like, "Thank you, Jesus. They got it right.
Yep.
Yak got out of you going home." Shannon, she really looked like she wanted to say the sentence out of the mouth when she said, "Not guilty. I'm giving you time, sir. You're going home. Don't worry about it."
Well, I think the final dagger in the state's case was when Stillwell was found guilty of that one gun charge, and the judge said, "Well, you know, the maximum is 5 to 10. Y'all have filed a recidivist. Y'all still want to stand on that?" And then they said yes, and she said, "Okay. Well, I'm going to sentence him to 10 years to serve 2, reduce the time served."
Yes.
The rest on probation.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I was, and I expected that. And you know what? And all other things aside, that was appropriate.
Yes.
You know, Tiffany, you've been in cases where you go to trial and your client is found not guilty on the more serious charges, but maybe guilty on something lesser, but they still get punished as though they had been found guilty of the bigger crimes.
Yeah.
You know, that didn't happen here. No. And that sentence was an appropriate sentence for that particular charge. I was happy to see it.
It was same here. And I think it was her way of fighting back against the state, right? Because as a judge, she can't be biased in the sense of she can't dismiss the case. She can't but she had control of that sentence. And so she said, "Well, I got to give you 10 years, but I can make it probation." Like letting the state know what I can do. And her reaction was the same reaction she had to the ridiculousness of them asking her to give Young Thug 25 years to serve when they 5 minutes before were going to let him go home because he wouldn't say it was a gay. How did you feel about that?
You know what? But the hypocrisy of the state had been on display from the very beginning. When all of these folks were arrested, none of them got bonds from Judge Glanville. And the state made the same argument. The state said, "Judge, you got to keep them locked up. If you give them a bond, they're dangerous. They're going to get out. They're going to kill people. There's going to be mayhem. They shouldn't be let alone to walk the streets. These people are facing life in prison. Don't give them a bond. They're dangerous." And then the minute anyone signed a plea agreement, they went home that day. I mean, one after the next, after the next, after the next. And I'm like, is anyone really seeing this?
Right.
You know, I mean, the hypocrisy was just staggering. You know, and I think anyone who's fair-minded, and especially if you're actually involved in the case as per se a judge or an attorney, if you're really watching and you see how it progressed throughout the course of the 2 years, or let's say the year, you have to realize that the state overreached. They hid evidence. They were dishonest. They were disingenuous, and they built a case without knowing what the case was about. You know, I mean, how often do the bulk of your witnesses, you bring them in, and the only way you get their testimony is by you got to impeach your own witness. You got to tell the jury, well, don't believe what witness said before or what he's saying now. Believe what he said before or what we think he said when we had the pressure on him.
And every witness, it was ridiculous. Like your star witness, you're having to treat him as a hostile witness in order to get the evidence. So the jurors, it wasn't lost on them. Even though they didn't understand a lot of the legalese, they understood when you treat somebody hostile, okay, that means that I can't really trust what they're saying. They're not acting the way you want them to. They like a lot of things that the state thought was strategy that would work, backfire. It was amazing to listen to the jurors and surprising because not always do the jurors get it right? Not always do they interpret it. And some of the alternates have been speaking out and some of them had different opinions. Some of them were, and isn't God good that they didn't end up being selected to deliberate?
Yeah, the right people got on that jury.
Yes.
The right people got on that jury.
The right moments occurred that allowed that to even happen. That was just amazing. So I saw a question. It's going to be a movie. Okay. I don't know who's going to make it. I wish I had a studio to go make this movie. Who do you want to play yourself in this movie?
Girl, I can't say.
I think maybe Morris Chestnut, maybe.
I'll take Morris Chestnut. I'll take Idris. But you know, let me tell you something. I have every once in a while I turn on the stream while we're in court because it's important to kind of get a sense for how the evidence is being received by folks who are watching it. And you got to have thick skin for some of these folks in these chats, man. Folks have called me everything from Wesley Snipes to DMX to Dave Chappelle. I'm like, come on, y'all. Really?
In the chats, they can tear you up in these chats.
Oh, the chat is brutal.
You got to listen to that so you can get your flowers, because they all had so many great things to say about you, your persona in court. I mean, the way you spoke at the plea, when it was doing the non-negotiated plea, like, talk about that moment. Like, I know you say it was Thug's desire, but tell us about that conversation. Was it argument where y'all like, no, stay in, and he's like, I want out? When you got an opportunity to ask for the mistrial and everyone was negotiating, did you run to go negotiate too? Did you take it as a, let's get this way out and see what our options are?
We always have the obligation to get some options to put on the table for our client. And so we had conversations with the DA and the assistant DAs, and we couldn't come to a meeting of the minds because we simply thought that they were ridiculously unreasonable in what they wanted him to do. And frankly, Jeffrey was not going to get up there and say something that they wanted him to say that was not true, right? Simply so that they could save face. We were not going to do that. And so it was never going to happen. He was not going to put himself in a position where he couldn't live or perform or perform his art again, simply because they wanted him to say certain things. So that wasn't going to happen. And so it got to the point where we had to make a decision between whether we go non-negotiated and put it in the hands of the judge, or we continue on to trial, because we weren't going to do anything with the DA. That wasn't happening. We went back and forth for a number of hours. That was a long day, and it took a lot of talking and a lot of reflecting. And ultimately, all we can do, this as an attorney with our client, is say, you know what? This is what I think.
Yeah.
But it's your decision.
Yes.
And you're talking about a man who's been locked up for 2.5 years, a man who has a family, who has kids out there, a family out there who are with him all the time. Yeah. A career that was waiting for him. A lot of different considerations for him. Brian and I's position was like, look, we're winning this case. Yeah. And we're gonna win it, Jeffrey. We're gonna win this case. It's up to you.
Yeah.
And that was a funny thing. And, talking to the DAs and trying to come to some kind of negotiation, they acted like they were winning. I'm like, the reason we're talking is because you guys are on the cusp of a mistrial. Right. They see y'all messing up again. Yeah. And y'all are talking to us like you think you're winning the case. No. So, but it was, that in any trial, the most nerve-wracking, nervous, anxiety-ridden moment is when you're standing up there and you're waiting for the jury to come back in and deliver the verdict. Yeah, well, that's how we felt when we were at the podium, because we didn't know what Judge Whitaker was going to do.
Right.
We had no idea. We thought we knew, but we didn't know. And so to just sit there and wait to see what she was going to do was, I was concerned, Brian was concerned, Jeffrey was concerned.
Right.
And what you heard, there wasn't we didn't plan for him to say anything. When the judge asked if he had anything to say and he started talking, I was like, all right.
You're always nervous when your client starts talking, right? You never know what they're going to say in that moment and whether it could turn anything, but it actually helped. Every word he said humanized him even more.
It did. He spoke from the heart, and he was really speaking the truth. And I think she saw that. A little aside, it's kind of funny. The judge's law clerk, very nice lady, Miss Percifield. She and Jeffrey would chat from time to time. A little chatter. She'd come at the end of the day to pick up things off the table, and there was a time when every time there'd be a motion for mistrial or whatever, we'd have to go up to the bench Miss Percival sits up there, so she'd have to get up and get out of the way and go stand over by the wall and wait for us to get done. And I noticed after a while that anytime that would happen, she and Jeffrey would be having a little conversation. Jeffrey would be like, all right, that's number 2. Well, that's number 4 time today. Okay. And, so I think they came to realize over time that this wasn't just a defendant or an indictment number. He's a real person with a family and a real persona and personality. And I think they took that all into consideration.
Yeah. I'm going to wrap up because I know we almost at an hour, right? We went up. This just flows, right? We just have a good time.
Listen, my day is done. We can chat. So if you got some more questions, I got a little bit more time for you.
Okay, good. I love it. So I'm gonna start getting some questions from the chat in just a second. So a couple last things. So we talked about the hypocrisy, right? So they actually swore on the affidavit that they had to watch.
Yeah.
Let's relate that to Moontoon, because the judge revoked his probation and said you swore on your plea statement that this is what it was, and then you testified differently. So I have to make an example because that's basically like perjury. So can we say Moontoon? Can I go file a motion to have his probation reconsidered? Like, is there a way to help him?
I think that should be done. I mean, there's a lot of nuance here, right? And I think, listen, here's the truth. Moontoon ain't no Rhodes Scholar, right? but keeping it real, he tried to explain the best he could. He was like, look, I'm in jail. My mama's sick. I want to get out of jail. All right. Everything that you got me charged with in this indictment is stuff that I've already done and served time for, So yes, I'm gonna sign this plea deal, but I'll have the opportunity to explain what I mean with these things when I get on the stand. And I think that was clear when he testified. His attorney said the same thing as well. And so I don't think that Moontoon got on the stand with an intention to perjure himself. And I don't think he perjured himself. I think he spoke his truth, when he wasn't under pressure, sitting in a jail cell with the DA telling you you're going to go to jail for 20 years unless you sign this plea deal. And if you sign the plea deal, you can get out today, but you just got to say that YSL is a gang and Jeffrey is the leader of the gang. And we'll write all these things out for you. You just got to put your initial right there, and he's looking at them. He's like, well, that ain't really true. It ain't happened just like that, and them telling them, well, you get a chance to explain that later on. And then when he gets on the stand and try to explain it, they say he's lying. That was dirty.
It was hard to watch. And I hope that in everything resolving that she will reconsider that and possibly let him out. Cause I don't think you can appeal something like that, but I think maybe a motion for reconsideration.
Yeah. You can't, the judge has ultimate discretion on that. There's no appealing from that, but yeah, motion for reconsideration or modification can always be filed.
Now, speaking of the horribleness that Moontoon was trying to escape in the Fulton County Jail, how was Jeffrey? Was he ever housed in the Fulton County Jail at any point?
No, Jeffrey was never in the Fulton County Jail. He was always in Cobb.
Okay, and so after trial, was he released? But he had to be released from the Fulton County Jail because it was their case.
Right. He was a Fulton County prisoner, just being housed somewhere else on behalf of Fulton County, but when the case was over, he was released from Fulton County, and they'd already there were arrangements made in regards to that eventuality. No one knew what was definitely going to happen, but in the event that he was going to be released that day, there were plans made to have him released from Fulton, which is where Brian and I went to go pick him up.
Right, I saw that. I loved everything about that. So some questions: did you all have the McDonald's footage? Did you all have that, or know it existed, or was it?
We think it's somewhere. We never got it. There are a number of things that we believe the state is inclusive of the police as well, having their possession that we never received, that they say they don't have. We don't, a lot of things we don't believe.
Right. And when you see things like a sworn affidavit that says you have something, but you literally testify under oath over and over that you don't, which one do we believe?
Yeah. Or you just make a decision that person's not credible.
Okay, so the question: how did you feel about learning that Kayla Bumpus and Shannon Stillwell were married?
Listen, sis, I still don't believe that. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Unbelievable, right? It's so unbelievable.
I don't know what to say. I don't know if it's real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true. I've seen posts. I've seen, a post from Miss Bumpers saying, my baby's coming home and, I want a baby by next week. I'm like, what? So I don't know if that's true or not. We're in an age where folks post things and put things out there for viewership and all of that. And I'm not casting aspersions. If they are in fact married and they got a beautiful romance going on, hey, more power to them. I love love.
Yeah. No. Hey, we love it. Shout out to Rachel Kaufman in the chat. Interview, had the opportunity to interview her. It's a great interview on the channel. If you haven't checked that out, she's been amazing, been a great voice. What is one thing you can tell us? African D has this question. What is one thing you can tell us now that the case is over that you couldn't before?
Ooh.
I know, right? I'm like,
I mean, y'all know everything. I mean, y'all were with us every single day from 9 o'clock in the morning when that, Law and Crime or Fox 5 camera was on us until we left in the evening. It was, y'all know everything. I don't know if there's anything that y'all don't know.
Would you all consider suing the state? Is that something you would consider?
That's not really something. Yeah, that's not something we can really do. In a criminal case, the only way you win is you get that not guilty, or you get a favorable outcome. So no, we can't sue the state. Now, when it comes to the forfeiture, again, someone's going to have to account for that watch that they say they have but can't seem to find. So we'll see.
Yeah. Someone had a question about the 8 terabytes of discovery. Was that needed, required, or was it strategy by the state to kind of throw you all off?
Well, it was both. They are required to give us every piece of evidence that they have, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. And so, but they're also obligated to give it to us in a fashion, in a form in which we can actually get it. And they didn't do that. What they kept doing is they dump, discovery number 1, discovery number 2, all the way up to number 12. Just and stuff was not necessarily organized in any form or fashion. So you'd have to dig through stuff. There'd be some information about Jeffrey in one, some information about Shannon, information about Moontoon, and so we had to spend a lot of time deciphering the evidence. There was a period of time where we made a motion. I think Weinstein may have made the motion. We did as well, Brian and I, having the court to order them to organize the discovery in a fashion where we knew where everything was. And they did that kind of, okay. But there was still items of evidence that we'd have to search for, and we'd have to contact them and say, listen, where is this? There were a bunch of times when the court would have to be stopped because they would say, well, we served it to them. And we said, no, you didn't. It's not in that 8 terabytes. So that was a problem. And that was strategy. I think so. That's my opinion. I'm not going to cast aspersions as though I know for a fact, but my opinion is that they did that to throw us off so we couldn't get ourselves prepared. Unfortunately, sometimes it threw them off too, because they didn't know where the hell the evidence was.
Yes. Yeah. They were scrambling and scraping the whole time. Right. So let's talk about what sent them scrambling. Did the speedy trial demand that you all filed towards the beginning of this case, did it set this trial in speed?
Yes. Okay. Yes, absolutely. They drew up an indictment and they moved forward thinking that they'd be able to kind of ramrod and roll over everybody in this case. What they didn't count on is that they had at least a couple of defendants who had enough resources to really buckle down and get ready for them. And, our position was, okay, you know what? We ain't running. We're not going to. And we had clients in jail that they were opposing for bond. So there's no benefit to us just sitting back for a year while Jeffrey's sitting in jail, give them time to get more up to speed. So we said, no, you know what? The hell with it. We're ready.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were ready for that.
They were not. That threw them off. And so the speedy trial demand, when you filed it, what did that cause? Like, what was the legal ramifications of that?
So at first, nothing, because you recall, I think we were still partly in the under the auspices of the emergency order. Remember the pandemic? Speedy trials were suspended for a period of time, and so that encompassed a portion of time when the case first started. So we filed a speedy trial demand, and we had to file another one later on to make it effective. It didn't really become effective until 2023.
Okay.
But that did move things along a lot quicker. That's what caused the judge to say, okay, I'm not giving them a bond, but we're gonna start this case in January. So and that's all right. That's also gonna say they want Tay Diggs to play me. I'll
Okay.
take Tay Diggs.
We can take Okay, so the speedy trial demand, that is because the state, because normally people are arrested. There's a time period that passes, and then their case is presented to the grand jury,
Right.
and they're indicted. But when Thug was arrested, they had actually already convened the grand jury and indicted the case and arrested him on an indictment warrant.
Exactly.
And Judge Whitaker said, you shouldn't have done that if you weren't ready to try the case.
Exactly. And that's the thing. They wanted to make a show of it. You remember how they drew the indictment, then they went out and they arrested Jeffrey. They made a big spectacle of it, and then the district attorney got on TV with the chief of police and everybody behind her talking about YSL has been terrorizing Fulton County for years on end, and they're responsible for 85% of the crime in Fulton County. One of the most ridiculous claims I've ever heard. But they wanted to make a spectacle of it. What they didn't count on is that we'd roll up our sleeves and we'd get to work, and we say, you know what, the hell with it, bring it on, let's try it. And it turns out they weren't ready for it.
They weren't ready. They brought the case and they weren't ready. And so this mixed chick, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. She says, how did you feel after Viverito said YSL had no ranking, but yet they had opened saying Young Thug was the wolf of the pack and the leader?
Let me tell you something. These detectives who call themselves expert, Viverito, Gaither, Belknap, Dennis, said they were gang experts. They're so full of it. I mean, the reality is they want to make anything a gang. So for years and years, I've been doing this for a long time. For years and years, they've been getting on the stand as gang experts saying, the way you define a gang is they have identifiable colors. One gang doesn't associate with another. You can't have Crips and Bloods in the same gang because they're sworn enemies. You got to have a hierarchy. They got to be dues paid. You got to be beat in or sexed in or blessed in, and you can't get out. None of those things applied to YSL. You could wake up tomorrow morning and say, I'm YSL, and you part of YSL. It wasn't a gang. It was a bunch of guys in Cleveland Avenue who called themselves something. And then since Jeffrey Williams was repping YSL and he was gaining all of this fame, all of a sudden everybody started saying, hey, I'm YSL too.
Right.
And meanwhile, you have some guys saying they're YSL out there doing some dirt, And so the only way they can do anything about it, the state, is they say, well, there's something called a hybrid gang. And so none of the other rules apply, but it's still a gang. So if the question was, how did I feel about Viverito saying that there was no ranking, that just kind of exposed, this fiction that they made up about, about hybrid gang nonsense. They've been having up black guys for years under this whole hybrid gang nonsense. I mean, realize there's a war out there on anyone who's going to call themselves anything other than anything they want to call themselves, because the state going to call it a gang.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just more hypocrisy, right? Because they use those things to say that, but he's at home on probation, and then you come back and say he's the leader, but then he's not the leader. The same way we saw with the Fonnie Willis trial, and how when the phone records were trying to be used against her, they weren't good enough, right? They weren't good enough.
You remember that? Yep. Well, those phone records. Those phone records say that you were there at Nathan Wade's house that night. Well, you can't rely on those phone records to pinpoint anyone's accuracy. But here we are in the YSL trial, them saying these phone records say that everybody was convened right there at the time that Donovan Thomas was killed. It's just so much nonsense.
Very much so. Very much so. So Ashley Merchant, her motions and letters, were they helpful to the case? Like, were you all looking at the fact that, were you aware that they had paid Nathan Wade out of the C's forfeiture fund prior to her filing her motions in her separate matter?
We didn't really know anything about that, and it didn't really have anything to do with our case per se. So I think if the question was that helpful? Not really. I mean, it didn't really have any impact on our case, and those are claims that kind of came out later on in the game.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you for answering that. Did the state coming in at last day in red, what did that do for you?
Besides make me chuckle, they probably made you feel good. I mean,
Well, you know what? I thought it was so funny. I threw on my red suit and jumped on live with the leader. Talk about it that day. Like, we're gonna all wear red. Okay, cool. Come on, the Delta as well. So,
right? It wasn't the first time. For a period of time, they would do that. They'd all wear the same color. The ladies would wear green and the gentlemen would wear suits with a green tie or whatever. And it's a little silly, but okay, if that's what you wanted to do, that's fine. But Doug made a great point, didn't he?
He did.
Right. I guess if you're all wearing the same color, same identifiers, I guess you're all a gang. As much as YSL is a gang.
Yeah. Now, Steele, how did you feel about him calling everyone the honorable except Adrian? And then when he switched and in the middle of a sentence called Glanville honorable judge, scratch that.
You folks don't miss anything. Let me tell you something about Brian Steele. And I love the guy. He and I have known each other for years and years. We've had dozens of cases together. We have cases together now. He's a great guy, and he is not pretentious, and he loves the law, and he loves this. And so when he comes in and he refers to someone as the honorable this and the honorable court, he means it.
Yeah.
But I think, to be honest, that he was so put off by the actions of the state and by the actions of one particular prosecutor in this case. It's difficult to refer to someone as honorable when they are being dishonest, when they are bastardizing the practice of law by hiding evidence or withholding evidence. All anyone wants is a fair trial, and you let the chips fall where they may. And I think he saw that, and he couldn't bring himself to refer to someone as honorable when he didn't feel as though they were acting in that vein.
You're totally 100% right. How did Young Thug feel, and how did you all feel receiving so much support from everyone? Was he aware of all the live streamers, the TikTokers, and how much everyone was invested in this case?
He
Wi-Fi
was.
is kind of fuzzy.
I'm sorry.
Your internet is kind of, I don't know. You went kind of. I can still see you good, but it's kind of.
Okay.
Like,
how about now?
Okay, we'll
Any
see.
better?
I can still hear you and everything. It'll probably clear back up. Yeah, that's better.
Okay. He was very, very. It kept him. He was happy to get the support that he did. I don't know that he was surprised to get it. I mean, the guy's an international superstar, so maybe he's on a different level for me. But he was very humbled. As a matter of fact, look who's calling now.
Oh, is it Young Thug?
Yes, it is. Hold on.
Wow, let's put him on speaker. Isn't that
Hey,
something?
Jeffrey, what's going on, man?
Man, just chilling. What you got going?
I'm actually on a live stream with a reporter talking about you.
Okay.
Say hello to the folks.
Hey, y'all see Young Thug? Hey, Young Thug, we have been praying for you, supporting you, watching you. We are keeping you in prayer while you're on this probation. It's just, we got you in prayer.
Hey, Jeff. Yes, sir.
Get me off the probation.
Okay. I wish we could start a petition to do that. We got to get you on the channel so people can hear from you. Like, everyone has been so invested in this trial and the outcome. How did that support feel? This is the question I just asked. Did you feel the support from everyone?
Jeff, we'll hold off on the attorney-client conversation in a second, but what the folks want to know is how you felt about the support that you received from everyone online, in the chats, everyone out there. How you felt about that support?
I was lovely. It kept me going.
There you go. Listen, man.
Thank you.
You send me those photos of the jury and shit that they got out of my house.
I will do that. I'll do that. Tell you what, let me wrap this up, and I'm gonna call you back in a few minutes so you and I can chat offline. Okay.
Okay.
Don't go to sleep, man. I know you're on a different time zone over there, but I'm gonna talk to you in a little
I'm
bit.
in Miami.
You're Miami?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right, man. I'm gonna call you back in a few. Okay. All right, bro.
All right, there we go. Isn't that something? We just asked that question, and here he comes.
There he comes.
And
There he
the
comes.
work never ends, right? Trial is over, but you still got work to do. You still got work to do.
Hey, listen, man. It's hard to, when you sit next to someone every day for the last 2.5 years, you can't help but get real close.
Yes.
But you know what? He was he was really very humble by that support, and it did keep him going. It kept us going. Folks would call. Let me tell you something. I must have gotten 5 or 6 emails a day from different folks from all over the world, expressing their support, sending me some potential questions to ask the witnesses. It was fantastic, and we are so appreciative of it. So appreciative of it. Attorneys, lay people. I was in Kroger, and this dude from Cameroon came up to me and he said, "Hey, aren't you Young Thug's lawyer?" He said, "Listen, man, we've been watching you in Cameroon. We are so supporting you. We love you. Tell Jeffrey we love him." I have a friend who's a teacher at Westlake High School whose kids put together some videos and sent them into Jeffrey. It was outstanding. It really was.
Yeah, the nation just came out and supported. So people are talking about your accent. So where are you from?
Born in Trinidad.
Yeah.
Grew up in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Went to school in DC, then went to school in New Orleans. I've been here in Atlanta for since the 90s.
Okay, good. What are your thoughts about how the state falsely put the material witness order for little D to testify?
Just more of the same underhanded stuff that they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that, they were dealing with witnesses who really didn't want to testify. And truthfully didn't really help them. But they were so focused on trying to get people in there to say what they wanted them to say that they would do anything they needed to. Remember that time we what's her name? Miss Bennett, Archillian Bennett, the woman who one of the DA's investigators was trying to holler at. Remember that?
Oh man! And wait a minute, and don't forget, Gaither was messing with somebody, auntie.
Yeah, Gaither was going on with Demican Garlington's auntie. I'm like, what? Let me tell you something.
How in the state do you put up witnesses with so much bias? Viverito in the hallway cussing out Kayla, threatening Kayla, tell her call me a hoe one more time. Like what?
Let me tell you something, Tiffany. At times I didn't know whether or not I was in the middle of a trial or in the middle of a reality show. Sometimes Brian and I would sit there, we look at each other. I'd be like, "What just happened here?" And he's like, "I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on here."
Yeah, you couldn't prepare for this type of stuff. Like everything that happened in this trial, you probably never experienced in any other trial before.
No, and I've had some trials in my time, but this one, oh my goodness, this takes the cake. This takes the cake.
Now, I know you said you were looking at some of the chats, right? Because you saw some of the comments. Did you have any faves, people, commentators, or YouTube people, Twitter people that?
I didn't look at it that often. We'd be in court, and when you're in court and you're in the middle of a trial, you're just switched on. You're turned on all the time because you're paying attention to what's going on. But occasionally there'd be a lull, and I'd go on the chat. I'd go on a live stream just to kind of see what folks are saying about the evidence. And that's when I get a chuckle or two. I can't say that I was on there often enough to identify any particular folks. I think there was a young lady by the name of Coco. I don't know if she was on Law and Crime or Fox 5 or whatever, but she seemed to be very, very insightful in some of the things she'd say. And she was there every day. And so we love that support. And everyone else who was on there on a regular basis, seems like everybody was. We really appreciated their thoughts, their supports, their commentary, their jokes. I think somebody called me. I wore a bow tie one day, and somebody said something about Attorney Adams and turned into Attorney Farrakhan. I'm like, come on, y'all.
Yeah, you heard it all. You get it all.
I've heard it all, man.
You have been with us for over an hour now. Thank you so much. I know that you're still working. You got a client you got to call back when you get off this call tonight. Probably got court tomorrow.
Yeah.
There are 4,633 people in this chat right now.
Wow.
And have been watching this live. Everyone wanted to hear from you. You're one of the faves. They appreciated your presentation every day. Very professional. Your cross-examination was solid. You brought out great points every time. It was never a moment that we were like, oh, I wish he hadn't said that. I wish he didn't do that. It was perfection.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You know, been doing this for a while. So, you know, my objective always is to do the best we can for our client. I think Brian and I represented Jeffrey diligently, zealously, the best we could. We got him home, which was the objective. And we were so proud to be there with all those other attorneys who were fantastic attorneys. Couldn't wish for a better group of folks to be practicing with and to be going through the battle with.
Yeah.
I wish you were there. I wish you'd been there.
I know, man. I wish I could have been there. But I definitely was watching, listening. The motion hearings, those were so exciting to me just to hear the legalese and the legal arguments you all came up. It was brilliant. This is something I didn't know even could occur. Is it normal for a juror to be on the grand jury and a trial jury with so close? Because I think one of the jurors was months apart.
Not on the grand jury that heard.
No, not that indicted this case. No,
right.
Just one for Fulton County, and then turned around and got a notice a few months later for the regular trial and got chosen.
Yeah. I've had trials. I've had a trial before where I had a juror who ended up on a jury and had been on a jury trial just maybe a month or two prior to that. So it happens. It happens.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the prosecutors getting sent to go do their remedial class. Did you know that Simone Hilton was a professor at Emory?
I did know that.
They charge about $100,000 a year for law school over there. I think tuition is about $70,000. Any comments on that, or is this a Woody?
Let me say this. I like Miss Hilton. I've known Simone for a long time. She was in Fulton as a DA, then she came over to DeKalb, where my practice is a lot. I've known her for a long time. I like her. She's a very nice young lady. Sometimes when you're in someone's orbit, it affects you. And so she was in Miss Love's orbit. Yeah. And got to think that had an effect on her.
Yeah.
And you know, but I think her abilities as a professor, I don't cast any aspersions on. I think she probably does a fine job. I just think that in this particular case, there were things that the prosecution as a team did overall that I have a lot of issue with. Yeah. How's that?
Yeah, I love it. Perfect. There was just a couple more, then we're going to wrap this thing up for you. Someone says they were so happy to finally see Love shut up. And really, they say after the verdict, but I kind of feel like she was silenced after she did the plea. We really didn't see a lot more from her after that.
Well, there was a period of time when I guess it was when you saw Assistant DA Adam Abadi come in, that I think you started to realize that there had probably been some discussions in the DA's office about who needed to be the point person in the case. Simone started doing a whole lot more. She seemed to be the lead at that point. And I guess they'd had some discussions about whether that was necessary or not, and obviously decided it was necessary.
Yeah. And the Judge Whitaker agreed, right? Because she kept kind of dropping comments. Everything's going so much more smoothly now with the parties we have in the room. Like Judge Whitaker was shady, right?
It was a little shady.
She was shady, and you were picking up everything. I love how you raised, because I think you were the one that raised the motion or brought up Gaither talking under her breath. Was that? Yeah. What did you think about that? Like, as a professional.
That was so unprofessional. I mean, like I say all the time, comport yourself appropriately in a courtroom. If you have a belief in the strength of your case, then that'll come through, you know. And if you play fair, right, whatever side you're on, you put it up in a fair manner, you do it properly, and let the chips fall where they may. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But to come in there and say things under your breath and within earshot of the jury, to sit there as a prosecutor and roll your eyes and throw up your hands right there in front of the jury, or to hold an item of evidence that hasn't been entered yet so that they can see. It's just dirty.
Yeah.
It's dirty. I used to be a prosecutor. I was a DA back in the 90s, a lifetime ago.
Okay.
And I would never dream of doing things like that. And I know a lot of prosecutors who I have a lot of respect for, who would never dream of conducting themselves in such a manner. I'm not saying that all defense attorneys do the right thing all the time, but try to do the right thing. How about that?
Yeah, yeah. What did you think about that letter situation? About somebody writing a letter, about love, but then finally responded. They copied the judge on it. Like, did they copy the defense on it?
They did not. I think it was the court that shared that with us. I think the judge shared that with us because the court realized that, that was kind of an ex parte conversation for Fonnie Willis to respond to something and send it to the judge, but not to the defense. It was a little bit of nonsense. It didn't have anything to do with anything. And shouldn't even been an issue.
Yeah. Now, what did you think about Juror 56 when he wrote his letter? Like, I knew he was going to be the fourth person prior to us getting to that end. What did you think about that?
I mean, I'm sure he wasn't the only one who was ready to get the hell up out of there. Right. I have got to tip my hat to those jurors. They were with us for a long time. They endured a lot. It's got to be something to be torn away from your family and your work, and indefinitely. And then you're kind of sitting at home for a month, not knowing what's going on during that whole recusal issue. So I tip my hat to them. I really appreciate the work that they did and the diligence that they brought to this case. So I'm, I understand, when number 56 said, I got to get the hell up off this jury.
The state keep on presenting how they presented today. I'm out of here. I'm going to be biased. He learned.
I feel you, bro.
And that's when you really knew.
Yep.
Winning.
Yeah.
And what did you think about Hilton's closing? When that Philly started coming out.
Yeah. Everyone has their own style, right? And I'm not going to take anything away from her, but I will say that you've got to know your audience. We had educated people on there, and I think I heard one of the jurors in their statement say something that they felt a little, I don't think they used the word disrespected. They felt like they were being talked down to. They're like, you don't have to dumb it down for us. We're educated women. Just talk to us. And I there was a lot of shouting. A lot of loud talking and a lot of, talk like you're in the streets.
She started using the N-word, cussing. What is going on? What is going on?
No, just a little bit, sis. Just a little bit. And I mean, sometimes you can. And look, sometimes in closing arguments, you just get on. You just get amped up. And you get on a roll. But you still got to know your audience. You got to still speak to the people in a way that they can understand. And I think that juror said it perfectly. They say you ain't got to talk like that for us to understand. We educated.
So, it didn't go over.
It didn't go over. Apparently not.
Any advice for someone planning to attend law school in Atlanta in the fall?
The first year of law school is difficult. Buckle down, study, really throw yourself into it. It gets easier after your first year. The first year is all about knowing how to get through law school, and the rest of the time is substance and so forth. It's a great profession. I love it. Get an opportunity to get some real world experience. Get out there, whether it's an internship in somebody's office, get to see what it's like in a courtroom. Experience a couple different clinics in the law school to get a sense for what you really like doing. It's a great profession. Once you get past that first year, you'll be fine.
Okay, thank you. And I said one last, but attorney, we got one more last, and I promise
one more.
Can the state be punished, reprimanded, or disbarred? Can anything happen to them for bringing this prosecution and locking these boys up for 31 months? And
So I don't know that they can. Sure, they can be reprimanded. They were reprimanded. The state was reprimanded a couple of times throughout the course of this trial for withholding evidence, for not being candid with the court, or in other words, not being truthful with the court. So that can happen. Someone can always file a bar complaint if they feel as though something that was done was improper, was in violation of either their oath as an assistant DA or their oath as an attorney. Right. So that can happen. I think one of the questions was, have I ever tried a case against either Love or Hilton before? Yeah, I have. I've tried a couple cases, 1 or 2 cases against Simone when she was over in DeKalb. Pleasant experiences, not like this at all. I've tried a case where Miss Love, I think, was second chair. It was a murder case. I won a number of years ago. This was a unique experience, though.
Okay. Well, they're sending you love. Keita G says, enough love, Mr. Adams. That's the sentiment for everyone in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. Everything about this has been amazing. It's been so informative. You gave us some behind the scenes stuff that we had never heard before. Thank you so much. Keep up the fight. It's needed. Everyone saw the injustices in this case, but we know it's not going to change overnight.
It won't. But it'll change with people like me and you. Yes. Right. So I'm gonna see you in court, sis.
Yes, I'll see you in court. Thank you so much, y'all. Shout out Keith Adams. Check him out. He's in here in Atlanta if you need a defense attorney. And please know, yesterday's price is not today's price.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
All right. You have a good night. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Good night.
All right. Thank you. Yes. Shout out to everyone in the chat. We have 4,541 in this chat. Y'all showed out for Mr. Adams. Thank you. Thank you so much. I do want to take time to give a shout out to everyone. We're going to run back through these super chats, run back through the new memberships. I'm going to check my cash apps. That was amazing. Like, I could have kept going. Okay. I really could have kept asking him questions for another hour, but he was amazing. And called in the middle of the interview. Isn't that crazy? To hear his voice, you heard him say that, he appreciated all the support from everyone. He definitely felt it. It definitely held him down. This was amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in. He provided us so much information. I'm going to get right to these super chats and memberships, okay? Shout out to Ruth Phillips, who became a member tonight. Shout out Mixed Chick. She gifted 5 memberships. If you all did not shout out Mixed Chicks when she gifted you that membership, please do so now. Shout out to Loyalty. Thank you for becoming a new member. Chi-Town Carrie. Hey, sis. I've been seeing you in the chat. Gifted 5 Fit Lawyer memberships. Thank you so much, Chi-Town Carrie. If you received one of her memberships, please thank her in the chat. Shout out again to Little Gaming Channel with his 1906. Shout out to all the members of A5A. Happy Founders Day to you. Next up, we got Harriet sent $1.99. Welcoming Mr. Adams, who was great. We asked him what was in that cup. What'd he say? Mind your business. All right. Shout out to JL, sent a $5 super chat. Yes, did you hear Juror 409 that thought Yak and Stillwell was guilty? Praise God, she was an alternate. What about the rest of the jurors talking? I haven't heard any more from the rest of them, but they got a YouTube page, y'all. I think it's Surviving YSL is the YouTube page, and they have a Twitter account. Was it Twitter? No, TikTok. So I can't remember what the TikTok was, but if any of the mods know, drop that in the chat so you all can go follow. But yes, it worked out, right? So thankful Juror 409 was not on that jury, because it could have come back a hung jury. And if it had it doesn't automatically resolve it. They don't go home. You hear Mr. Adams talk about them not having bonds, right? So the judge would have to make a decision. Do I give them a bond while the state decides that they're going to retry the case, or what happens, right? Shout out Little Gaming Channel, came through with 5 Fit Lawyer ATL memberships. Shout out Little Gaming Channel. I thank you so much for the continued support. Thank you. Met in the Leaves chat. And you've just been a #1 supporter on this channel from day one. So thank you. JL sent $2. We read this question out about the 8 terabytes. As you heard him say, yes, strategy. Yeah, they had to turn over all the evidence they were going to use, but we clearly see they did not present 8 terabytes worth of evidence. And what was on 8 terabytes worth of evidence when there was no evidence linking the people to the crimes that they were charged with? Okay. Shout out Objection 403, one of my new moderators. Thank you for becoming a member. Thank you so much. Michael Love sent $5, right? Y'all know the drill. See, y'all, I'm a little nice right now. I haven't started locking people out, but let's get the likes up. That will happen one day, okay? Shout out to Erie, became a new member. Thank you so much. Shout out to It's the Curls. Thank you so much. Yes, we love Keith. He was amazing. Thank you so much, sis, for sending the $20 super chat. Let me get that crate. Thank you. Thank you so much for supporting. Thank you so much for sending that super chat. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you to my first moderator, Alchemy. Thank you so much, sis. She gifted 10 Fit Lawyer memberships. If you received one, thank Alchemy in the chat. Shout out to Black Amazon. Sends a $10 super chat. What did she say? Oh, this was a question, about who you wanted him to play. Y'all had some suggestions, didn't you? I saw some of everybody. Wesley Snipes, Tay Diggs. It was a lot of different people. So I cannot wait to see who is going to be playing him when this movie comes out, because there definitely will be a movie. Okay, there we go. Fearless Query 21 sends a $5 super chat. Nathan Wade has the damn watch. I know that's right? Because where's the watch? They said they had it. $600,000. How much was he paid? Okay. All right. We'll see how that turns out. Yes. Thank you. It's the Curls again. $20 super chat. Fulton County is corrupt. That's why we need honorable attorneys like Keith and Brian in Atlanta. Yes, it's needed daily. As you heard him say, system's not going to change overnight. We saw all the injustices in this trial. Thank goodness it was live streamed, so you all can see how things play out. We're hearing now from the jurors to see how they interpreted things. So this really shed a light on the corruption that happens in the justice system. So yeah, shout out to Brian and Keith. Shout out to Charmel Buchanan. I hope I said that right. Or Carmel Buchanan. Shout out to becoming a new member. Shout out Objection 403 sent $5 to say Tay Diggs needs to play Adams in the movie. Princess Waku sends $4.99. The appeals court is happy to not have to see this case on their desk. I know that's right? They're like Whitaker when she read that verdict so fast. They're like, whoo, because going through 40-something mistrials and trying to figure out, it's going to take them forever to get the transcript. This would have been in a mess. The appeals court was very, very happy. They want no parts in that 1,000,000-page transcript. Right? Exactly. We got It's the Curls again. Thank you so much, sis. You've been supporting tonight. It says $10. I'll be looking at the TV saying, there goes my husband. Okay. You be like, my man. We see Mr. Adams. You heard he say he's married. So yes, he has a wife at home, but yes, he does present so well in court. Very handsome, always dressed professional. The jurors loved him. He was amazing. Shout out to Very Mindful, $5 super chat. How did he feel about still calling? Yep, he spoke about that, calling everyone the honorable except Ms. Love. It was so funny, and especially when he took it away from Glanville mid-sentence. It was classic, and that's what Brian Steele is, classic. Andrea Williams sends $2. The state let their egos get in the way, didn't they? I mean, to bring a case that after 170 days, everybody's at home with probation. The people that did go will be eligible for parole. And seeing how everybody else's cases played out, I wouldn't be surprised if parole might be granted early. I mean, why hold them in jail, right, when others are home? African D, okay, yep, we got that read out. Mixed Chick, we read your question out. Thank you so much, sis, for the $10 super chat. She asked about Keith and Brian and how they felt after Viverito said YSL had no ranking. And he spoke about that, right? He said it's about the hypocrisy and how they It works for them, but it doesn't work for the defense. It was just back and forth the entire time. Shout out Republic Room, $2, asking the question about Ashley Merchant's motions. We read that out and he answered. Benny, I was glad I was able to bring your question up. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat, asking about the state and how they can be reprimanded, punished, and prosecuted. And Keith Adams spoke on that, right? He spoke about a couple of times Judge Whitaker did reprimand DA Love in front of everyone. And there are things that can occur, but they will not be filing a lawsuit. B, he gave some advice for a first law school. And wasn't that nice of him to just take time out and share that? Like, Keith is great all around. He was a great guest. Mariah Matthews sends a $5 super chat. Can we ask how did Thug feel when he received the support? And what happened? Thug calls. Shout out Mariah Matthews, right? He felt the energy. So he called. We got to hear him talk on that. So you can go back and hear that. Elizabeth Wright sends $5. Can Thug still perform? Oh, Sons, good question. Good question. I might have to reach out and get a follow-up from Mr. Adams on that. That's something. We'll see, right? We'll see what he ends up performing. Benny 0123 sent another $5 super chat. Thank you. And then you were asking Keith Adams about love. He answered that question. Shout out. Brett Bartell, $10 super chat. Yes, he says this case got a white guy that doesn't like rap music listening to rap music. We finally made it. Rich homie Quan. Yes. You listening to Lizard? Did you listen to Lizard Walk, Brett? And they turned you on to the rap music. All right, shout out. It's the Curls, $20. Keep repping in YSL. Shout out the Curls. I cannot add that fast, but I'm adding up and you're looking like the stream sponsor here. Thank you so much. It's the Curls. Shout out. And Alchemy with her 20 membership gifting. So yes, shout out to the stream sponsors, Alchemy and It's the Curls. Thank you so much. I'm going to add you all to the banner. Latasha Douglas, shout out, became a new member. I greatly appreciate it, sis. Andrea Williams sends a $5 super chat. You were asking about his professional opinion of AD Love, and he spoke about that. Mariah Matthews. Oh, am I going backwards? Oh, sorry, y'all. My bad. Historian Tracy Rookert Shaw sends a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, sis. Thank you again for having the goat on tonight. His cross was absolutely surgical. Yes, and when I saw your chat before, I didn't understand the hashtag Brooklyn, but like he said, he spent some time in Brooklyn. So thank you so much for that. Shout out to Miss CDB. This is one of my besties. She became a new member tonight. Shout out, sis. Thank you. Captain Obvious. I like that name. Sends a $5 super chat. What are your thoughts about the state falsely put the material witness order for Little D? And he answered about that. Ooh, wasn't that crazy bringing that Little D from the hospital to testify? No, he was sick. That was just disgusting. It's the Curls again. Sends another $20 super chat. Thank you, sis Thug. We love you. Yes, Let Mama Cook sends a $10 super chat. And the Honorable Mr. Adams, after seeing your blood, sweat, and tears repping Thug for an entire year, it's so great to see you relaxed, smiling, and laughing. Yes, wasn't it so good to see that? But you hear the fight continues because literally the plea was on Thursday. I saw him in court on Monday. I saw Carrington Matthews, who represented Mr. Huey, in court on Monday. I'm in court, they're in court every day. I saw him the Tuesday, the following, last week. They have cases. Judges have been calling for them to come to court. As you see, they got clients that are waiting on the results for their cases. So it doesn't stop. The fight doesn't stop. Let me keep going. Y'all have been so supportive tonight. The super chats blowing up. It's so many, but I am going through each and every one of them because I appreciate your support. Mrs. W 1985 sends a $5 super chat. Is it normal for the jury, right, to be on the grand jury and the trial jury? Now, we did point out the difference. They were not on this grand jury, but yeah, I had never heard that before, but it can happen. And she had actually only been in Atlanta some months before she got the subpoena to even do it. So very strange. I tried a lot of cases in Fulton County and they say it's random selection, but it honestly sometimes doesn't feel that way. Shout out to Mark H10, sends a $5 super chat. Mr. Adams comment on Miss Hilton teaching. He did. He gave a great response about that because she teaches trial techniques at Emory Law School. Oh, how ironic. Trial techniques. Alrighty. It's the curls once again. $10. Thank you, Keith. Respect and love. Slaps, right? YSL, Keith Adams. They earned it. They fought so hard, 2.5 years. And still tonight, Jeffrey had a question for his lawyer. Like, that bond is there, will last forever. Thank you so much. It's the curls. Just looking. 992 sends a $5 super chat. I was so happy to finally see ADA Love shut up. Yes, right? It was so good. I think it was like the weight lifted in the courtroom. The energy shifted. Everybody commented on it. So thank you so much for sending your comment about that. Don Allen 80 sends a $20 super chat. What was he thinking after he read the letter? Yep, he did speak about that. We brought that up. B sent a $5 super chat. Gave you the advice. And am I going backwards? I'm sorry, I'm trying to get through. Keita G, shout out, girl, for your support. $20 super chat. Enough love, Mr. Adams. Angelica Schofield, no question, no comments. Pure love of the game. Angelica Schofield sent another $5 super chat. Little Woody, and can you ask him about Little Woody addressing Thug in court? Oh, I wish I had seen that. I'm so sorry. So I don't. Well, maybe we can get a part 2, or I'll send some of these questions over to give you all an update on them. Angela Baby sends a $2 super chat. I think you got the first Young Thug shout out other than T.I. Okay, isn't that something? I cannot believe he called in the middle of the line. I got to cut that one little clip so I can post that so everyone can see it. Shout out Pills, Potions, and Poisons. Shout out, sis. Excellent interview. That should be your closing for your streams. Fit, I'll see you in court. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat. I love that idea. I love it. Yes, I'll see you in court. Thank you so much for that, sis. I will be using that. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Saw you met you in Lee's chat, and you just been a great supporter from day one. So many of you all have. Like, I can't be up all night shouting out all of the people that have supported me from day one, which wasn't long ago, right? 2 days before Thug's plea was day one. So thank you so much. Liz, Robinson sends a $10 super sticker. Thank you so much for that support, Liz. Thank you. The one Mr. Ham sends a $5 super chat. Great seamless job, Fit Lawyer ATL. You're a natural. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'll be glad to audition for playing the legend, Mr. Adams, in that film for sure. Okay, all right. The one Mr. Ham. Okay, we're gonna make sure you stick around for that. Let's see if you can get that role. All right, DB sends a $5 super sticker. Thank you so much for your support. Shanta Shantae sends a $5 super chat, says, thank you for bringing him on. Really opened my eyes and learned so much, especially considering I'm white and never paid attention to the rap genre. Yes. And there was someone the other night that was saying the same thing, like their eyes have been opened to so much. And who knows, like the Lord works in mysterious ways, right? So there was so much that happened in this case. And what if all of this exposure changes jurors' minds for future defendants? And so even though the system can't get changed, the people who are operating in the system that have that final say, the jurors, maybe their minds will be changed forever and see the injustices that occur. So like maybe there's so much that can come from this trial, even though people like Thug ended up on probation or Montunk got sentenced to prison. Like maybe we can get him out, and the truth of what occurs in our justice system has been exposed. So when you get that jury summons in the mail the next time, maybe you don't throw it away, right? Maybe you don't shirk your responsibility. Maybe you look at it as an opportunity to ensure that justice is served. Okay, so I really hope those type of changes are the things that this has brought along. Shawnee Love sends a $5 super chat. Love what you were doing. Thank you so much, sis. Love you too. Thank you for being here. DB sends a $2 super chat, says, proud of you, Queen. Thank you so much, DB. I believe that I made it through all of the super chats. Shout out to our stream sponsors, and I'm going to go update that banner. That is Alchemy, one of my moderators, and don't get me to mess up the name, the Curls. Yes, it's the Curls. So let me get that right so I can update the banner. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you all being here. Keith Adams was great. It was just amazing to be able to get that inside scoop, the behind the scenes. I did not know that he actually stepped out of the courtroom when the judge tried to lock up Brian Steele to actually double down on, no, you're not going to make me go practice without him. So that was like awesome to hear those little things. So thank you so much for tuning in. This has been amazing. I am going to update this banner and okay, let me figure out how to do that. Okay, there we go. All right. Shout out stream sponsors. You all were so great tonight. Thank you so much for supporting, being here, listening. I put the wrong time on Twitter, but it didn't stop anyone. You all were here. We were almost at 5K in the chat. You all had the lights up. I really appreciate it. It's the Curls. And since I just can't add all those numbers up that fast, I will go back and do that and correct it after this is over. And hold on one second. Y'all struggling over here. It's the Curls. I want to make sure that I get it correct. Before, yep, it's the Curls. Okay. It is look, shout out to live streamers. Like, it's a lot to do. I'm over here like two screens. I'm like, I need another. Update the banner, update this. Like, shout out to everybody who live streams. Like, this is not easy. There's a lot going on. So thank you. Shout out to everyone was here. Shout out to everyone who liked, subscribe. Shout out to everyone who shares this. Thank you so much, Deja. Thank you so much for that. I think we got a couple more super chats. I need to go. Karen I sends a $5 super chat. This was a great stream tonight. Thank you, sis. Thank you so much. Excellent interview with Keith. It was amazing. He was an amazing guest. It just flowed, right? It was amazing. Shout out to It's the Curls again. She says, thank you. Love what you're doing. Shout out, sis. Thank you so much for all of your support tonight. Thank you so much. You've gone above and beyond. I greatly appreciate it. Shout out to everyone who signed up. Just trying to make sure I got everything. All right. So I think I got everything covered. Remember, I am not your attorney. Nothing I have said tonight is legal advice. This has just been legal commentary. Thank you so much for joining in. I will see you all later, and I'll see you in court.